Hey, welcome, Dominique, to the Peanut Gallery. Welcome, everybody, to the Peanut Gallery. We are excited. We have on with us Dominique Giguère, and she is a counselor and deputy mayor of Malahide. Very involved in the community. She's part of the Rural Initiative Committee and the St. Thomas Public Art Committee. That's fantastic. There's some awesome questions to go along with what happens there. That'd be great. You're also involved in the Terrace Lodge Renewal Project, and you sit as the chair of the fundraising committee. I want to say welcome to the Peanut Gallery.
Thank you so much. And that's only half the list of the committees that I work on.
We are going to get into that because I want to hear about what you're doing and how involved you are in a community and how you volunteer. I think that's fantastic. So, I mean, to go along with that, maybe give us a little bit of your backstory about where you come from, how you ended up in this region, how you ended up living not too far away from where we are right now. And tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
And how much time do we have?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding because it's always it's a good question. Like, how did I end up here? And I think the best way to answer that, if you'll allow me, I'll just sort of zoom out a little bit and back up, and because it's really. My life is not planned, and
which is interesting because I take you as a very planned individual from our conversations and from what I know of you. And my life is not planned.
It's not. So, and what I mean by that, and so I get that reaction. It's like, you are not planned. And I said, no, not per se. Like, I've never had a specific goal of, I'm going to live there or I'm going to be such and such. I don't know how I came to it. To have just basic principles is, so I'm going to know my strength and my values, my sacrosanct values that I'm not really willing to budge from. And then I'm going to work hard to equip myself and the tools, so whatever I need to contribute and move forward. And then I'm going to be open, watch, be on the lookout for where there's going to be a good fit with my principles and strength, like the skills that I have, and all the tools that I'm accumulating along the way. So when I look back, that's really how all the different places where I've lived and where I've worked.
So basically what you're saying is as you've grown through your journey and you've gone past the next stage, you've kind of been like, you kind of look around and you go, okay, that's where I fit, so I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
And then from there, once you've done what you believe that your fit was for, I'm going to go to that one because that's where my fit is.
Yep.
Wow.
That is fantastic. I affirm that way of living 100%.
It works. It works because it really relieves a lot of stress. And in terms, there's so much, I find like everybody's like, find your passion and make your dreams happen. And I know in high school, like it would be like, what do you want to be? And I felt stressed. And I said, well, I don't know. and there's so much about work hard and make your dreams happen. And then I was like, what if you don't have a specific dream? I'm willing to work hard, but and I think that the smartest advice was one of my teachers in high school said, "Go where it's easy." And he said, "Don't get me wrong. I don't mean like take the easy way out. Go where it feels easy, because if it's easy for you, that means that there must be a strength. It must be aligned with what you're meant to contribute."
So he was trying to help you to identify your strength by where you seem to be able to just thrive.
Yeah. And he said, just keep that. So that was in high school, trying to decide what I was going to take. I did want to pursue more education. And so my top class, like my highest grade, was in biology. And I said, great, I'm taking biology. And then I don't know why, I don't know where I'm going with this, but clearly there's something. Mm-hmm. And then I did a degree in biology, and I also didn't know where to go to school, and so many options. And then I was in Quebec, so I'm from.
So where did you end up going to post-secondary? Like the Quebec schooling system's different.
Yeah. So
I have some friends from Quebec, and they tell me about like school. You go to grade 5 or grade 6, and then 7 and 8 is rolled into high school in a lot of locations.
Yep.
So then you got your senior grades, or 7, 8, and then through 12.
Yep. Or 11.
Then you got like junior high, and then you got senior high.
Yeah, and so technically you go to 11. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes, I have to count because it's 5 years. It's 5 years, and because I get confused because we don't call it like grade 11. It's like secondary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, yep.
So when you finish secondary 5, then you have options. You can go to a college, and in your college you can decide in a 2-year program that would be a pre-university program, or you can go for a technical program that would go into a lot of different technical professions. So grade 11 is when you're making your first decision of a different institution, and that's
again, like you're saying, very young to know what you want.
I don't know, but so I took pure and applied sciences, and then again another teacher advised me, said, well, why don't you go to Trent University?
Okay.
And because at the time, so I was not fluent in English. I just had my high school English classes, and so he himself was a graduate of Trent University from when it first opened. And he said, you'll see it's a small town, it's a small university. So for someone like you leaving home for the first time, not speaking the language, like you'll have the right support and, if you do your part. And so again, it sort of followed my principles of go where there's a fit with your skills, and even so this is back in the day where before the internet, and I didn't know where Peterborough was. I didn't know. So you pull out like a paper map, and then it's like, okay. So I didn't even tell my parents I applied because I thought, what if I don't get in? I don't want to stress them out. But so then when I got the letter, then you have to say, and then they said the same thing. Where is Peterborough?
So did you grow up in rural Quebec, and then?
So no, I grew up in the suburbs.
Okay.
So both my parents grew up on farms, and so I have several aunts and uncles who stayed on the farm, and I have many fond memories of in the summer. Now I realize my parents were just shipping me away, but I thought it was a treat. So so I grew up in Boucherville. So it's a nice suburb, just I always say off the island, so on the south shore of Montreal, and lovely, modest upbringing, but with everything that I needed. But so then the joke is now that I've been kind of making my way down the 401 because after Peterborough, I was in Toronto. I went to York University to do a Bachelor of Education because when I was in Peterborough,
where my brother went to school, went to York. So.
Yeah.
Cross connection right there. We're playing the Mennonite game with
yes,
somebody from Bell
Province. Perfect. Appropriation at its best.
Yeah.
But so those three, like that sort of recipe, if you want to call it, like go where your strengths and you're aligned with your values, and keep getting equipped. So I kept getting, more degrees just to, again, always position myself for what seemed to be needed and what was a good fit, and then stay open, and ended up at working at TV Ontario from not even graduating from York University, but there were no teaching jobs at the time, and we were encouraged to stay open to other opportunities because they said there are any number of organizations who need certified educators, and so I was a science teacher, and I actually applied to work at the Science Center.
Oh, that'd be cool too.
They need bilingual science educator who know the curriculum, but in the end, they actually passed on my resume to TVO. TVO needed education officers to actually advise on their programming and develop resources for teachers.
That's really cool.
So it just goes on and on down the 401, and as far as Malahide, it's again, so opening up the newspaper, and I always liked looking at the out-of-town properties, and I was living just north of Toronto in Schaumburg at the time. Lovely rural feel, but developing very, very quickly.
Very quickly.
A little too much to my taste, and I really would like to stay in and be in a more rural setting. And so in the paper, there's an ad. And go on YouTube. So the real estate agent, I guess, had a YouTube video of the property and saw it, came down, and love at first sight. Said, this is it. So again, the perfect fit. Everything aligned. My stepson was finishing college. I was a full-time consultant, so no strings attached specifically as to the location didn't really matter where I was anymore. So had the right skills to, like I said, be fully independent as a consultant, and there was an opportunity. So you go check. Here
So
I
do
am.
you think, as a secondary question to some of what you said about trying to determine like what you wanted to do in life, do you think we focus too heavily on like the hopes and dreams side of it and not the personal like development of who you are side of it, and that leaves a lot of people? Because from what I've seen, like I have a degree in economics. I'm a pastor. And before that, I framed for like 15, 20 years. There's a lot of people who have a lot of degrees, and it's not their fit, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't know what they wanted to do, but they kind of, I'm going to go and I'll get a degree, but it wasn't really them.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a better way we could model that? Like I know there's many different types of people, and there's different approaches that are necessary to be able to help people in that setting, but it seems like in your case, you had a couple teachers who like had some good wisdom to be able to share about figuring out their tomorrows.
Yeah. My personal opinion, yes, there's too much emphasis on a goal or a specific dream. And I think that as you're growing up, there is so much you don't know that you can't even dream, really. Like you can only dream from the basket of things, of professions, of places to live that you know. So already you're limited. So, and then there are two flaws. So that's the first flaw. That's way too limiting. Secondly, what happens when you achieve that dream? You're done? So if all along you haven't paid attention to, but why do I want that dream? What's behind it? And maybe I adopted that approach as to protect myself. Well, if I don't achieve that dream,
you got another option on the side.
Another option. So, maybe it's a defense mechanism. But I think it is too finite. And in fact, there's a book I'm fond of called The Infinite Game. And when you focus on values and dreams, always constantly aligning with your values and your strengths and what you want to contribute, you're never done. So, because then you discover, it's like, and because your values will evolve too. So it's like, I didn't realize I was so attached to this, and this is really important to me, but now it's been challenged. Now I realize I've got to align with this. And so in that book, it's focused more on corporations, and they compare corporations who focus on values versus an end goal. Right. And they compare who succeeds in the long run. So
in other words, if the corporation is just driven by, we want to see a 20% increase in profit, and then you look at the corporation, that's, how are they coming alongside their staff and employees to better their lives and existence and who they are as individuals, you're going to find this one might shoot ahead, but that one's going to surpass it. Yes.
So the theory is that you will achieve that goal, but you may not get past that goal. So because there's kind of a anticlimactic sort of after, it's like, okay, now we're done. And the other flaw is, and seriously, if there is an adverse external factor, and in your personal life, it could be illness, it could be something in your family that is out of your control and takes you completely off track of your dream, you're less resilient because your whole identity and everything you were doing was attached to that dream.
Right.
And so I find my approach, and it's an approach that as a consultant for businesses and primarily for not-for-profits, attach yourself to your purpose, why you exist.
Right.
And then no matter what happens, you'll be able to adjust.
Because your purpose really doesn't
have to change.
Right.
right?
The different goals come and go.
That's right.
But you're still
so
driven.
this year you can say, and don't get me wrong, so once I land somewhere, then then I have goals, and so if I land a new gig and I'm given a challenge and an objective, so I do have a little bit of a competitive edge, and will strive for that. But my identity is not all about that. I'm attached to the foundation piece and more of the roots, and not attached to what is more exposed to the elements and things that are out of my control.
Wow. I like that. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've talked about how you got here.
Yep.
Councillor, deputy mayor. What are some of the things? I've mentioned a few of the projects and committees and different stuff but how do you? What sort of other things have you attached yourselves to that line with purposes and that for you personally?
So, I can speak to some of the committees that are connected to my role as deputy mayor and county councillor. So, I've signed up for the budget committee at county. I've and by default we're all on the budget committee in Malahide as well. But you mentioned the rural initiatives. I'm on the connectivity committee. Really important that we need some strategy and breakthrough to address our connectivity
So
needs.
you're speaking about the issue with internet, Wi-Fi. The towers
High
that I've heard.
speed,
Yeah,
yes.
Being able to improve that. So when we're virtual, people can join meetings. And
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, we've noticed some problems when it came to going all online here at the church and boosting our connectivity here. But then we have so many people that come from rural areas that they might be able to get on one platform, but only audio, but they wouldn't be able to get on a different platform because of the way the stream works and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, some of the stuff that you guys are doing with the connectivity issues, it's fantastic hearing about that you guys want to boost that. That's a pretty cool thing.
We're pushing hard, and I'm in some ways if there's going to be a few silver linings to the pandemic is exposing that weakness. I was keenly aware of it because I've been doing international work for the last 10 years, and we used to be on Skype, and it was really embarrassing. And that was one of the things, actually, when I moved to Malahide, I took for granted.
You just thought it would be there, right?
And I assumed it would be internet, and I already had international clients. And I ended up on a call with several of my team members in Africa, and I was the one with the worst connections compared to my colleagues, in near Cape Town in South Africa.
Isn't that wild?
So they said, but you're in Canada.
Right?
I said, no. So
and not just Canada, we're not talking we are in the corridor of Canada. The corridor. It's not like we're in the way north and the expanse of what Canada is as a country. Yeah. This is prime Canada real estate right here. This is it.
No excuse. So if anything, like I said, it's been on my radar for at least 10 years. And so now that there's more momentum, just people have now everybody has experienced it personally.
Oh, yeah.
So now I think there's more interest, more momentum. So we're going to move, I'm hoping.
That's really cool.
Some strategy. But so all of these committees are great opportunities to, contribute my skills and some of my experience and my perspectives. And that's what I like, whether it's council or a specific committee, is the diversity of perspectives. And that's how I think we make the best decisions, is because everybody brings a slightly different perspective.
We need community to inform community because that involves, that's really cool.
Yeah, so it's the same with the arts. I think we're there's so many things that are underexposed, underutilized, and I think the talent and the importance of the arts for a community, and of course Terrace Lodge.
Yeah,
of course Terrace Lodge. So that's really my privilege to chair that committee again. So the redevelopment of the actual infrastructure was overdue.
Right.
So we knew that, and finally the time was right, and the willingness was there for government to support that, and we're thankful to the provincial government for looking after that bricks and mortar piece, and
Right.
it will be state of the art. And the timing worked out that we learned additional needs and in the design that we will be able to incorporate.
Yeah,
we
because you're
learned from
just
the
in the building,
pandemic.
so now you're going to be able to do filtration systems, I
Exactly.
imagine, is
So,
a prime
and
thing right now.
Even increasing, so we doubled the size of the dining room to allow more space, which then we realize is actually more convenient anyway, regardless of a pandemic, because you have more room between tables. And if people come in with large chairs and they're wheelchairs, if they come in at late or later, it doesn't disrupt. And so great opportunity. We improved the area for staff and just like locker rooms and just more space. And so it'll be safer and just more enjoyable. And we have to pay attention to the staff who work so hard. So great opportunity. And so that's all happening. But the vision for the fundraising component of it is, and we've called it the comforts of home. And I'm looking over here because,
Yes.
of course, I have to plug in a
please do.
brochure that I will leave with you. But it's comforts of home because we know it from the science, and we know it from experience that perhaps up until now we focused a little bit too much on a state-of-the-art kind of institution where, it's everything is pristine and in a certain color, and it's so a lot of the homes, like even the most modern ones, may have more of an institutional feel.
You feel like you're
and
walking
it
into
works
a hospital.
well
Yeah.
for the employees, and
Right.
everything is efficient, and everything is done in a certain way. And now the shift and the realization that it's like, wait a minute, we need to be, resident-centered, and it has to be less of medical care and more emotional care. And so the whole concept, and there's been research, and there are amazing initiatives in other countries that we're learning from. There are other areas who have adopted a model called the butterfly model, for example, where they really transform the institution, the bricks and mortar, into a home. So when you come in, it has the same kind of feel that you would when you walk in your own home, including your own front door. That most people like to personalize. Like you go even in any subdivision, and some of the homes may look a little bit similar, but everybody will kind of decorate differently, and the door will be a little bit different. And
Right.
so it makes sense. And so what I appreciate is that even it's been researched. It's for those with dementia, it's more comforting. It calms them, and they
because stress
do
just
better.
exacerbates the problem that's already present. And
Yeah.
if you can find
Yeah,
man,
so
that's fantastic.
So we made a catalog. We made a wish list of all the items, from bookcases to lounge chairs to electric fireplaces. I mean, courtyards that will have proper raised planters and birdhouses, and so of course all of that at this point, even though I'm hoping the vision is ultimately that will become minimum standard. At this point, it's not. So we have to top up.
Okay.
With fundraising. So the total wish list, the cost is $675,000.
Okay.
So we're giving ourselves 3 years, and we're doing very well. Like this year, the goal is $225,000. We're at 50% of that.
That's awesome.
With about 4 months to go for this year's
And
campaign.
I mean,
so.
I was going through your Facebook profile just to get some of this information and to find some of your backstory. I think I saw some links on there that people can click on to be able to give,
Yes.
and to donate towards that cause.
Yes.
Which
Donate to terracelodge.ca. Very, very easy. You can pick an item if you prefer to donate a specific item, or you can look at the types of things we're looking for and give a general donation. And at any time, you can call myself or any member of the fundraising committee. We can answer any questions, and we want to make sure people have full trust and confidence in where the money is going to go. That's why we wanted to make it very visible and accessible. But we need to do this for the community. It makes sense. You and I may end up there.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I'm doing this, thinking ahead.
thinking about where you're going to
this is what I want,
The way we
my
treat
next home.
the elderly now is the way our kids are going to watch us and are going to treat us. So, I mean, it is selfish, but at the same time, you're setting a model for the future to say, look, this is what it means like to humanely treat them well, to love your parents. That's what that means. For Christians, we would say honor your father and mother. That's not just a little kid. That's what, as they get older, how do you honor that? And I think this is a great example of that. And you guys are doing a great job. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. And the interesting thing too is that I'm also seeing a link to connectivity. So what's happening with Terrace Lodge and why we have to change even the design of it is because by the time people arrive and have the need for long-term care, they are much less independent than they used to be when in the 70s when people used to drive themselves to Terrace Lodge, right? So in parallel to that, the aging in home is really also a very humane way of most people would like probably to stay in their own environment, their own things, but if you have good internet, as silly as it sounds, we will, and we saw it with the pandemic, and I'm glad that's accelerated. That understanding is accelerated because that means you can have your medical appointment, online. You can order all your goods and your prescriptions or your groceries online. So, and we're getting to the generation where people will be comfortable with online, but you need the bandwidth for that. And so staying connected to your family, to your caregivers, and who knows, you might have, driverless cars who take you to your medical appointment and that where you need to go.
We're not far away on that.
We're not far. So that means we need to think ahead and make sure our roads are going to be developed to support that. Our broadband, infrastructure is going to be able to support that demand. And then, so that means people can stay in their homes even longer. And then when they really do need to go, then they have a beautiful place like Terrace Lodge.
Yeah, so that it's pretty interesting because the increases in the medical capabilities and the healthcare has extended the ability for people to live on their own.
Yes.
And I can see how greatly a dynamic that changes. Like you're not. You're dealing with people that are way more towards the end of their journey than people used to be. So that would really alter how you have to design and set up and what is expected there. And not just alter it, but like it can't be just like some of the rooms. It has to be way more of them because more people are above that age limit where it's more difficult. Yeah. Wow, that's some good thinking ahead.
Donate to terracelodge.ca.
Yeah, donate to terracelodge.ca. You heard it here. Donate to terracelodge.ca. Did everybody get that? Awesome. I love it. So what does a deputy mayor actually do?
Attend council meetings. But I mean, first and foremost, you're part of a team. So it's not so much what you do, it's what you are. You're a member of a team, which is one part I like about municipal council where there's there's not so much partisanship. It's very much a council where and as I mentioned earlier, we each bring different perspectives. So that's one thing that I do is I'm a member of a council and I bring my own expertise, experience, point of view to all the decisions and discussions that we have. And
so you think like because of the setup and how it works on the council, you think it creates a space where there's actually a higher degree of productivity and advance for the public? Because everybody's like, because you can live, in the north and run for in the south if you want, like that type of thing can happen. But you think you guys have a good environment where you guys work better as a team because you're all looking to not just keep myself and my voter base happy, but the greater community benefits, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and I cannot speak for other levels of government and that I haven't experienced, but I know, and
we are hoping that later on you will.
And we have wards, and so there is a certain efficiency there in terms of, for our residents to know who they can contact.
Right.
And but at the same time, and I've seen sometimes people will call also who they're comfortable with or who they know, and I do see that team spirit. It doesn't. It's like, oh well, that's not my ward.
Right.
Or if somebody calls me, so as deputy mayor, I don't have a ward, so similar to the mayor, then I can take phone calls from anyone, and I look at the broader issues. But at the same time, I've never seen that dynamic where it would be, well, did you call your local counselor? Like, don't call me, call your local counselor. So on the contrary, to me, it doesn't matter. You call whichever first number you find or you feel comfortable with, and I make sure to inform my colleagues as well, and we work on issues together. So as deputy mayor, you take a lot of phone calls and wonder, and it's such a great way to get to know the communities, because then you really hear what's important to people, and so you learn about their priorities. And deputy mayor, I guess, as officially as a role, I sit in for the mayor if the mayor is absent for a meeting. So that I also have that responsibility. And even during the pandemic, had to declare the state of emergency because the mayor was held out of country at the time. So you never know. Be ready to step in.
Yeah, you guys have had an interesting 18 months.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. And I said that this is because I'm so fond on learning. So that's one of my key principles is always learn, stay humble, and learn more, because there's always something you don't know. And I have a tendency to always go for more degrees, only because I find it an easy way to learn, because it's all structured for you. If you sign up for a program, then all the coursework is already laid out. But at some point, it's like, no, there are also other ways to learn. So I've actually looked, it's like, oh, this is like a 4-year term. It's like a 4-year degree in civics.
Right.
So, so the pandemic was extra courses I had not.
Yeah, you weren't anticipating
that was not on the curriculum. But,
if it would have been written in there, you might have been like, pandemic studies.
That's too advanced.
Actual pandemic studies.
That's right. So my learning got expanded and accelerated, which totally game for.
So we're seeing, just from watching, there's a generation of people who've been serving in our community for a long time, and
I'm so grateful for
they've progressed towards the end of that serving journey rather than the beginning. So as young people who are in the community who might be watching or listening, what would be some of the insights that you'd be willing to share for them who want to step into leadership roles about what they should be thinking about themselves, the role, just things that you think are important pieces for them to consider as they make that decision?
Yeah. Good question. And I think just the fact that they would consider it is already a win, because I'm sometimes I feel that we're not open enough, and maybe younger, I guess, and I've been there too. You're tied up and you're in the thick of your family growing and your job, and so if it even crosses your mind to say, how could I contribute, just keep that thought, like cultivate. So that's advice number one: cultivate that thought, because we do need more diversity. So, because I think, like I said earlier, it's a different perspective. Like I said, I'm so grateful for the counselors on our council who bring perspective from the past, and they say, well, remember, we've talked about this, and this has come up before, and let's not forget that in today's decision. That's something I wouldn't know. So, So you definitely need that balance and that richness. And at the same time, I may bring something that with fresh eyes that would say, well, have you considered that? And so advice number one, if you're considering it, please cultivate that thought. Talk to some of us who if you're not sure what it entails, and maybe you don't have time or whatever, or you think it's not for you, but just cultivate and think about it. And probably then link to what I said earlier, make sure you know why. So what is the purpose? So then you'll know, again, whenever, if you're having a bad day and you say, okay, so why am I doing this again? And so that answer needs to be anchored. So the answer is not, I want to be, a counselor, or I want to be mayor. The answer is more about, I want to ... Like, I want to contribute this particular skill set, or I want to reflect a part of the community that and be a voice for a part of the community that perhaps currently is not represented. Do you know what I mean? So answer your why, and then go for it.
That's good.
Hey, what sort of challenges or obstacles have you faced? I know we talked about this being a little bit more tricky of a question and answer in the different roles that you've held or you've been a part of, and what helped you to overcome them? 'Cause I know the last 18 months or whatever we're dealing with has been challenging in many ways, but like what other things that you would say in your own personal life, man, that was really challenging for me, and then how did you step through that?
Yeah, and I'm very philosophical about life, and sometimes that's why I'm thinking, so like, okay, what's a challenge? Because really, it's almost like my definition of a challenge is just that something happened that was slightly different than what you expected. Is it a challenge? So in my mind, it's not like an obstacle. It's like, oh, okay, didn't expect that.
Right.
So readjust. Right. And so again, so why am I doing this? So what's beneath this? So it's something that sort of comes up unexpected. And so the way I deal with it is first I realign with myself, make sure I stay aligned and then don't overreact. It's like, okay, this is not personal. This is not an attack. This is not someone or something trying to block you personally. This is just something external that is not aligned with your expectations. So sort that out, and then dig. Like for me, it's like seek to understand. So some of my friends or close clients call me Dr. Dom, because the what I do in life and with in my business is a diagnostic.
Okay.
And the practice there is to not react to whatever is being immediately presented. So, and most people can relate to an example of you go to the doctor and say, I have a headache, and hopefully the physician will know that you don't respond exactly, like immediately to, okay, well, here's a prescription for your headache. It's what's going on. Tell me more. And trying to get to, the root cause. And that's usually where the real remedy is, or the way to tackle this challenge and this unexpected. That's where it is, and the solutions are much more obvious actually if you dig, because if you stay at the surface, it could be any number, and it may be wrong, and it may be too much trial and error, and it may be too emotional, like too reactive. So in faced with the challenge, like take your time, ask why 5 times at least, the Japanese approach. That.
So if you're saying your why hasn't changed when faced with the obstacle, and typically speaking, your why most likely wouldn't, if you're grounded in your why, if you know your purpose, then instead of, like, that obstacle is really not, like what you're saying is not an obstacle because it hasn't changed your why.
That's right.
So now you need to figure out how to get past this moment, because you're not gonna be stopped from getting to the why. You're going to keep pursuing it.
Yeah. And understanding and deconstructing the challenges itself too, like understanding, so what's going on, and especially if it's more of a interpersonal conflict or challenge or barrier.
Do you find that's typically more of what you face? The more of the, in terms of complications, a lot of it's interpersonal. I know you can, like, when a project is ongoing and it's design and it's like, but that's not, a design issue typically can be overcome. You change the design.
Yeah.
It didn't change the fact that we, right? But
attached to the design, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So. Yeah, it ultimately, I mean, there's no object or there's no, a detour in the road. it was done by someone. So it always and it's going to be solved by talking to someone. So yeah, I think ultimately, and so you try to understand the other, seek to understand their why as well, and then usually, I think sometimes people I find don't even know their own why. So I know they're upset about something or something is being stopped or blocked, and sometimes I find I just facilitate even their own realization of like, oh, right, that's actually why I'm really upset about this or why this is really important to me. And then other options open up. Say, well, if that's what you're trying to achieve, if that's what you're telling me is important to you, I know you want it to go this way, but if we focus on, that purpose and the goal, there's probably another way that will get you there. So, and that will fit. And I mean, in the municipal world, it could be about, rules and regulations, and often that feels like a challenge, or
yes.
I'm being blocked, or I can't do this. And say, okay, so whoever designed that rule, chances are they had their own why that maybe you're not aware of and I'm not aware of. So we need to understand that and say, oh, okay, so they're concerned about this. Now you're concerned about that. So instead of staying stuck at your want and your rule don't match. So, if you go on another level, might be able to find a fit.
So here's the question for you. With the federal elections, like we're on the doorstep of snap election, it's coming fast.
And a provincial and a municipal election.
It's all happening.
All
Here we
in
go.
1 year.
What sort of things as residents of this region do you think we should be looking for in a candidate? Like in terms of how their decisions would affect our region? Like if I'm staring at the candidates, and this is one thing, especially going through, there's been a lot of leadership on display in the last 18 months. I mean, we've been face to face with a lot of people a lot more regularly than what we would. Like we've seen them on internet, we've seen them on TV. They've been very, very visual, and so is their leadership.
Yeah.
So in terms of when I'm looking at a candidate that I want to vote for, what would you say would be keys that you think people should really focus in on in deciding who gets their vote?
So you've learned from me now. I'm philosophical, but also not very original. Like I have the same answer to all of my issues in life. So of course, I'm going to look for someone who knows their why and that they are pursuing this role. They want to be elected not to be something, but I'm going to ask questions but what do you want to do? And is being elected in this role that you seek the only way that you can do what you want to do? So in other words, so if you say you're very passionate about, family and childcare, then if you're not elected, are you still going to pursue? There are any number of organizations who are doing advocacy or doing any kind of services. And so I would challenge all candidates on, I know what you want to be because you're running for office, but beyond that, what do you want to do? And I want to know if you're that passionate about those, topics that you will pursue them regardless of what you are.
So if you just don't get the title, it doesn't stop you from chasing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So ask them more about not what you're going to do when you're elected. What are you going to do if you're not elected?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that. That's really insightful. All right, so we are almost maxed out on time, but we knew this was going to happen in advance, which is totally okay. This is great. But where do you go from here? Okay, so you've been serving on council. Your purpose. I'm guessing that you're not done yet because I can sense it that you still feel like you have purpose in this area. So what's some of the things that you obviously the renewal project at Terrace Lodge, you want to see that happen, but what are some of your other dreams for Malahide and for yourself and maybe your family as you fit as a puzzle here?
Yeah. So again, in my non-original way of thinking, so I'm right now, I'm applying to Malahide what I apply for my life. And what I said at the beginning is, you have to know your strength and your core values. Then you have to invest and equip yourself to succeed. and then you position yourself proactively to be on the lookout for opportunities. And I feel that Malahide is ready to do that. Like, I don't think we actually know our strengths and what our true core values are. We just received a study recently as part of the Parks and Recs, study master plan, and finding out that we are young. Malahide is young. We're going against the trend of the rest of the country. We have young families, active families. We're entrepreneurial. We have talent. And all of that, like, we need to turn the dimmer. Like, it's way too dim. I want to, so that we actually know what our strengths are and our core values. So then, if we need to invest and equip ourselves to make sure we can really enable and unlock all the potential of those strengths, then let's add a few tools in our toolbox and invest, and then be on the lookout for opportunities, because I do think Malahide, like I said, could be a leader. Like, I see it, and I think that's probably one of my greatest joy of this role that I took on as deputy mayor is the ability to discover all of the work that gets done doesn't get talked about, like the work that you do, all the faith-based groups, the service groups. All the support that you provide to your own community, and the how you value education, talent, and you can rival any level of government program. And we don't talk about it. Like, it's not, like I said, it's not celebrated enough, and it's not tapped into in terms of let's work as a team and all of the ideas. So we have all we need. So we just need that inventory so that we know our own why, and we may need to add a few infrastructure pieces,
right,
so that young families will stay here and have everything that they need, and then we'll be open and ready for any opportunities that come our way. So, yeah. So, and to me, it doesn't matter, because I know kind of the hidden question sometimes, like, well, so what's your next step? And true to how I would challenge other politicians, it doesn't matter. I'm committed to that vision, and whichever role I have in the community, I want to do that. There's lots that we can do about with Malahide. So
yeah. Well, Dominique Giguère, thank you so much for joining us today
Thank
on
you.
the Peanut Gallery. We have appreciated your time. We appreciate your service to our community in so many different ways. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for deciding to move here. I'm glad that your puzzle piece fit in our community, which I think is it's awesome. We love that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part. Like, subscribe, post, share, whatever else you need to do.
And run for council.
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you for joining us today. Hope everyone has a great day.